Hey, podcast peeps. Welcome to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast, part of the United WeCast Network. I am Mike Ergo, along with my co-host Lindsay Hiken. We're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective, about living that multi-sport lifestyle and share those other random thoughts popping in our heads. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Age Groupies. Join the Age Groupies page on Facebook and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. And if you guys enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's guest is Air Force veteran, Ironman Finisher, and all-around awesome dude, Eddie Kenney. Starting on January 1st, 2020, Eddie will complete 26 half-iron distance triathlons in one calendar year. So that is 26 70.3-mile triathlons all in the year 2020. Eddie is raising money for an organization called Canines for Veterans, which pairs trained service dogs with disabled veterans to help them in their healing journey. His fundraising goal is $320,000. So you guys can find out more and make a tax-deductible donation to Eddie's cause by visiting 26and52.com. Check the show notes for links and more about Eddie and how you can get in touch with him. Also, how you can follow his progress on this awesome journey. All right, guys, let's get to the interview. Eddie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we met briefly back in 2017 in Kona. I think it's the first time we met on right on the pier, right by Digme Beach.
Yep. Yeah. It was kind of fortuitous. I was there supporting my wife at the time, who was a pretty high performing age grouper that had the opportunity to go race there. And while she was out training, I was kind of walking the pier, walking the beach, and was wearing a Wear Blue Run to Remember shirt. And I remember this dude kind of just comes rolling up to me going, "Hey man, wear blue." And that was it. That's where you and I met.
It's so funny how some of these meetings happen, because obviously we'll get into what's going to be so big about this, us meeting up and your story. But it's so funny. Sometimes this is just little things, like someone is wearing a shirt or a hat and just casually, mentions something walking by and it turns into something really big. But yeah, it was so cool we were both kind of halfway went around the world, saw you there. So let's hear about you. First of all, you're an Ironman finisher.
Yeah.
You got some good huge plans for 2020. Shit that seems a little crazy to me, but crazy in a good kind of way. So Eddie, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the sport of triathlon.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. Just some of the basic facts. I'm a 46-year-old father of one. I've been competing with myself and competing in the sport for about 2.5 years now, maybe 3 years, and it's kind of an interesting way on how I had gotten into this, into the sport itself. If I kind of rewind the clock and I can actually have gone back and looked at my Garmin data, I can tell you the first day that I got in the water was February 14th of 16. I got in and said, you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot. Like I mentioned before, my wife at the time was racing, training all the time. I saw, all the awesome things that came out of it. I love the camaraderie and the really the badassness that goes along with being around triathlon. But at the time, dude, I was, pushing 200 pounds probably. I'm only 5'7.5", 5'8" or so. So I'm pushing 200 pounds. I'm a fantastic Sherpa. And for anybody that doesn't know what that term is, basically I just carried my ex's shit around through all the races we had gone to.
The Sherpa is such a key part of the team for triathlon, to have the person who hauls your shit around.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing more valuable than giving somebody that ticket to go pick your bike up after a race. but yeah, so I'm sitting there. I'm at the time, whatever that means, I'm 43 years old or so. Like I said, way overweight for what I should be. My exercise regimen was kind of limited to beer league softball, which was fine. It's what all the dads were doing. And that was just fine. But, the at the time, as I was kind of looking through the window at the life that I was leading at that point, kind of seeing this triathlon world, the idea of getting into it seemed so overwhelming. I had never learned how to swim. I grew up on Long Island, where we swam in municipal pools, and you didn't really ever learn the proper technique. Frankly, I couldn't go one lap. That day, February 14th of 16, when I got in the water, I swam about 17, 18 yards or so on one breath. I got frustrated when I got to the other side of the pool, hopped out, and that was it for me. I drove home disappointed, obviously. I wanted to get into this sport so badly. And, I think in retrospect, I wanted to get into the sport because it would have given, my wife at the time and I something in common. I think there were some signs that the marriage was starting to weaken a bit. And this was my way of going, you know what, if she's going to be out there training, 10, 12, 14 hours a week, and if I can grab a few of those hours and we can do this together, maybe we can bring it back.
Yeah, we all come to the sport with our own why, our own reason for doing the run, bike, swim thing. So the first day, 2016, and Valentine's Day, you did not fall in love with swimming. You made it half a lap, only one breath. What stroke were you doing too?
Oh, I don't know if you could call it freestyle. It was my version of freestyle. If you would imagine, try and get a visual of, instead of Godzilla climbing the Empire State Building, Godzilla was in the water. That was probably the best visual I can make. That's
an awesome visual. I can dig it.
But Mike, what came out of that though? Like I said, I was pretty frustrated. And I was a decent athlete in high school. And when I was in the military, I played soccer and was a pretty good athlete. So that was first an ego shot. But on that ride home, I got to thinking, man, this is not going to be easy. And, I remember saying to myself, man, I can't do this. And then I snapped out of it and I said, bullshit. There's no reason why you can't do this. There's thousands of kids every day hop in the pool, let's do it. So I called who's now become a friend of mine and asked for a swim lesson. Funny story is I thought I was scheduling an individual lesson, but what turned out was when she had told me to meet her at the pool, it ended up being a group lesson with about 4 other 5-year-olds.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the ages were.
Yeah, they were about 5 years old, literally, with dinosaur goggles on, and there I am, like I said, not looking too great in my jammers, but blowing bubbles on the side of the pool. And I'm really proud to say that I stuck with it, swam a lot, started integrating the bike and stuff like that, and I swam my first 1.2 miles probably 6 months later.
Dude, that is so impressive. Yeah. I think the most let's back up. I think the most difficult thing about learning how to swim isn't the technique. That's hard, but the humility, especially if you come to it as an adult.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't. I'm trying to picture like these kids with dinosaur goggles blowing bubbles, and then there's you. They're like, why is Grandpa here?
I was fucking scared to death. I mean, I literally would not put my face down and exhale under the water. I think once I got that, then it all kind of built pretty quickly. But man, there was an awful lot of life lessons learned in those early days in the pool. But that launched it for me. At that point, I had this goal of competing in a 70.3. And, I think most of your audience, just given your background, probably knows what that is, but I'll just quickly go over it in a minute. So 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, and then a half marathon. And that was my end game goal, was let's get prepared to do that. I was happy to say that about a year later, I had done my first one in Augusta in, I guess that was the end of September of 17 is when I did my first 70.3. I had done a fair amount of races in between, just local little stuff, kind of getting the feel for it. But yeah, that's what started it.
Yeah, that's to go from not being able to exhale underwater to doing a 70.3 Ironman triathlon. That is so cool. What was it like crossing the finish line for your first one?
I think I'm one of those guys. I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't mind getting emotional about stuff. That stuff doesn't, I don't look at it as, not a real man to do it. And I remember coming down the chute and seeing, friends and family there that had supported me, and just an overwhelming experience of running that carpet. It's really interesting. The run that day, anybody that's raced Augusta knows, we tend to have pretty high temps. I think it was pushing probably 100 degrees that day as well.
Good Lord, with humidity. For all my West Coast friends, with humidity, that's so miserable.
Yeah, it was awful. It was, it was a very slow shuffle, but there's something about the sport, and there's something about, the magic that gets put into that red carpet that they roll out. Because I'll tell you, that last quarter mile or so, I was floating, and all the aches and pains and issues and whatnot when you cross that line for the first time was really something hard to explain as I'm trying to do it now. But I will tell you what comes from that carpet and kind of there, you cross that line of the race course to the finisher medal, and right shortly after you stop your Garmin, your brain goes to, all right, what's next? And it wasn't very long after that I said, okay, now it's time to double it. Let's go after that 140.6.
Really? So after your first 70.3, your first half Ironman, you said, I want to do the full distance?
Yeah, I would say it was probably, I went back and looked at my credit card statement. I would say it was probably less than 2 to 3 weeks later, I signed up for Ironman Chattanooga for the following year. Man,
it took me a couple years before I even thought about that. So the fact that you do a 70.3, you're like, let's double this misery. Yeah. I love that.
And I think, you look back and you get to kind of pick the pieces apart on how it got there. Again, I'd mentioned earlier that the relationship was kind of faltering. It was really getting pretty rough and rocky at this point. And again, it was that silver bullet mentality of, all right, now I'm really going to be in our world. Now I'm really going to be able to do this. And, there's an interesting, I think you would agree with this, and I've listened and got to know your story quite a bit, Mike. So you came to it, obviously with your own details and story, but, there's something exceptionally selfish about Ironman and about triathlon in general, especially the longer endurance distance stuff, because it takes so much time away from family and to train and do it. And I had signed up, and shortly after I had signed up for Chattanooga, we did finally separate. And I remember looking back going, all right, I gotta make a decision here. Am I gonna kind of go back to what I was, because my plan didn't work? Finding that common thread didn't maintain the relationship. Or am I gonna say fuck that and keep rolling? And I never look back.
What do you think changed about your motivation? Because your why started out as, maybe this will help the relationship. The relationship doesn't work out ultimately, but you still keep going. Like I remember you said you had a moment where you said, well, I could go back to just eating Funyuns and sitting on the couch, or you could continue with it. So what was it?
Well, I think, it sounds like a Hallmark, Saturday afternoon movie, but there is, you got to find the lesson in everything that you're tasked with. And I quickly, with the help of professionals and friends, people I was talking to through that part of my life, I was on a positive course. No matter that the relationship and no matter that failed, I was on a positive trajectory for having a very healthy and successful kind of personal life. So I think after I kind of got past the woe is me, kind of part of any breakup, I said it's time to to get to work. And that's why I brought up the selfishness, because I think for the following year, as I trained for Chattanooga, and then just this past year, I had the absolute pleasure and honor to race at Challenge Roth in Roth, Germany, which is another full iron distance race.
That's such a cool one.
Oh man,
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, unfreaking believable. But that the training and me kind of getting healthy in a lot of different ways. I'm actually proud to say that I was able to be a little bit selfish and really work on myself, and obviously not leaving my son out of it, but really focusing on what was good and healthy for us in the long run. So that's what motivated me to keep going on that course. And it's frankly that same selfishness, that same kind of feeling of I'm going to do it for me, is what brings me to your podcast today, because and I know we're going to talk about this quite a bit here in the coming minutes, but it was time to look outside of myself. It was time to look at a bigger purpose. And I'm really excited here in just a little bit to explain what I'm doing and how I got there on what my plan for the coming year is.
You got a big vision for 2020. And I think right before we get that, I think it's worth noting that this idea of racing and selfishness, it's a tough topic for a lot of us. And I think my personal view is that there's a balance in there. I mean, if you totally neglect yourself in the name of taking care of other people, you're going to be no good to them, and you're going to be contributing less than you could, and you're going to be unhappy. Then on the flip side, if your life is just an adventure of selfies and doing whatever you want at the expense of other people, then we might be venturing into the topic or the territory of complete selfishness. But I think it's different for everyone, trying to find that balance of how much training, how much racing, how much doing these things can make you a better person to be around. So I don't think it's ever like a one set answer for anybody.
I think between being completely selfless and then selfish, there is you've got there's the chance you become a narcissist. So to go from absolutely selfless, where you did everything for anybody else, to selfish, where you were really kind of focused on yourself. But there's the chance of then turning that selfish to becoming a narcissist. And I think what needs to be there to ensure that you don't go to that far kind of that far end of the spectrum of narcissism is awareness. You need to be aware of the people that are around you, what's truly important. What is that thing that kind of, that when they're kind of looking back at the life of Eddie, are they going to open the story with Ironman? I don't fucking think so.
Yeah.
God, I hope not.
Yeah.
Hope they look at it and go, man, he was, a fantastic dad, a guy that did stuff outside of his own needs to make surroundings better. And that sounds, I know, a little pie in the sky or a little bit kind of corny, but man, that's what I'm shooting for, is to not be looked at as that selfish narcissist even, but really start looking at how I can bring this new life of health and positivity, to a much bigger cause.
Yeah, it's much needed, especially today. Do you have anybody in your life who checks you still? I got a friend, for me personally, my friend Joe Stein, another Marine he has nothing to do with Ironman. He'll text me occasionally, or I'll see him. He's like, "Hey, you still doing that like lame spandex sport you do? Like, you even talk to your kids anymore?" And so it's a nice, it's a nice little splash of truth, a nice little splash of just kind of checking myself and checking my ego and be like, okay, yeah. Where am I in life? Am I neglecting my family? So let's get into your big plans for 2020.
Yeah.
We got some, you have some audacious goals, and it's for a pretty awesome cause. So tell me about it.
All right. So this idea, I mentioned earlier that I was training pretty heavily for Ironman Chattanooga, and when you're training for a full, there are quite a bit of large time blocks that are and can be mind numbing, especially when the weather is bad outside and you're stuck on a bike trainer for 5 or 6 hours on a
Oh,
given
that can be
Saturday.
brutal.
Yeah, and that's exactly where this thing, and I'm gonna tell you folks, the title of it is 26 and 52. So I'll leave that hanging there for just a second, and I'll come back to it. But I was on one of those bike trainer days, in my house, just plugging away, sweating like mad, and turned on Netflix and was just trying to find something to kind of keep my mind off of the fact that I still had 4.5 hours to go. And I come across, I had heard of James Lawrence before. I had heard of this guy that had done, was an exceptionally accomplished triathlete. And he had taken on this challenge of doing 50 full distance triathlons in 50 days in 50 different states.
What was your first reaction when you saw that he did that?
My first reaction was, this guy's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I was like, what a fucking psychopath. He must be a machine.
Yeah, you know what? And if you Google him, you'll see that he's not that far off from a machine. I mean, I think he's like a 0.25% body fat or something like that. The guy's in ridiculous shape. But I start this thing. I go, what better motivation for my ride than to watch this movie? So I start watching it, and like you said, Mike, my first inclination or my first thoughts were, this guy's crazy. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Why would somebody put your body through that kind of torture in a 50-day window? But as I kept watching the movie, you started seeing that he wasn't alone. He had his whole family with him on the bus. He had his team around him. And he had a purpose. He was working to help, frankly, feed neglected children through an organization. And it was right then and there that I kind of realized that it gave me a chance to reflect that what I was doing at the time was a little bit selfish, but it gave me the idea that this sport doesn't need to be just about me. My brain starts going. I will say that the idea and the concept of doing 50 full Ironman at my age and my current physical ability was not something I was even willing to consider. So as I was on the ride and watching this, it popped into my head. I go, I won't do 50 full in 50 days in 50 states. I don't have the bank account for it, nor do I have, frankly, the ability to do it. But what I can do is, what I can attempt to do is 26 70.3 triathlons in 52 weeks. So rather than 50, 50, and 50, I plan on doing a 70.3 distance, not sanctioned, not all sanctioned, but 70.3 distance triathlon every other weekend for the full calendar year of 2020, beginning on January 1st. And, similar to James and his cause was looking at child nutrition and the ability to feed and things like that. I decided to take a little bit of a different path and find a cause that brought my military, my veteran kind of spirit, the things that really I am very proud of and passionate about helping. I started looking for opportunities to focus my efforts to translate into the ability to earn a little bit for a fantastic cause. And I know we're going to get into that in just a moment, but
yeah. So let me break that down for a second, just for the people who are new to the distances, and there are so many terms, just like the military, so many acronyms and so many numbers being thrown around. So 1 year, 26 triathlons, and each of these triathlons are 70.3 miles long, or the half iron distance. So that's like you said, the 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike ride, 13.1 mile run. So you're going to do, like you said, one every other week for an entire year.
That's right. That's my goal. Is to start on January 1st. And like I had mentioned, not all of them will be sanctioned. I'm looking forward to doing a few local races here I'm in North Carolina. I'm looking to do a few of them here, a few Ironman branded 70.3s, and then travel a little bit. Maybe bring the cause to being a veteran, and we'll get to the organization I'm going to be working for. But it is entrenched in assisting veterans, and another thing that I'm passionate about, service animals, service dogs. So I'm looking to spread out a little bit across the country and hopefully have some folks join me on the journey, whether it's a small segment of or compete or a complete full each day with me. The one caveat I do have though, Mike, is I am doing Ironman Lake Placid.
Yes, nice.
In July, and that will count as 2. I'm not doing. Doing that weeks later, doing a 70.3. So.
Yeah, no, that I approve. I definitely approve. And we've been talking, before this interview of how I'm going to come out there and join you for one of these things. And I think it's going to happen. I've been talking around, and I think it's going to happen. So yeah, let's get into your why. Why are you doing this other than it's fucking awesome? Yeah.
So again, the idea of starting to work outside of myself. So I started putting my brain power into finding an organization that really resonated with me. And I have a very good friend of mine that I grew up with. His name's Chad Althizer. He wouldn't mind me using his name on this. And Chad's
shout out to Chad.
Chad is a retired forward operating Marine. And I think like you, Mike, and his time in the Corps, had certainly seen some things that adjusted his lifestyle, adjusted his life and the way he looked at things. And I don't think he'd mind me saying that when he left the Corps, he struggled a bit. I mean, like a lot of veterans, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder is something that's a very big reality. Anybody that's listened to your story knows what path it took you down, and we're so thankful that you were able to come back to us the way you did. So I thank you for that, and I'm proud of you. Chad had not completely similar, but not completely dissimilar path. And as he was working through, some of the demons that go along with the things that he had seen and participated in, a shining light that came to his, I don't like saying recovery, because I don't think anybody, and I could be wrong, and I would love for you to step in on this point. Like, I don't think recovery is the right word. I think you learn to cope and deal when you suffer or live with post-traumatic stress disorder. But one of the things that really brought Chad around was his partnering with a true service animal. And as I got to thinking about the things that I like, I'm a retired. I spent just shy of 21 years in the Air Force, which consisted of active duty time and then also Guard and Reserve time. And by no means do I don't even insert all the Air Force jokes here, everybody. By no means am I saying that my 21 years put me in a position to see or do the things that folks like yourself and Chad had to do. I'm certainly proud of my time in the uniform. But what it did give me is the idea that we should not abandon each other when service is concluded, no matter how that service ended. So I had this. So I started researching. I started trying to find organizations that worked and partnered with veterans and helped them join these men and women that are suffering with an animal to help improve their life. I did do a fair amount of phone interviews, and then I came across this organization called Canines for Veterans. They're out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And they were just like family, invited me down to watch a partnering ceremony. And I was just floored at the work and the selflessness that goes into these folks going out and rescuing. So they rescue dogs from high kill shelter situations, and they train them for individual veterans with different needs and circumstances.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And they do this with $0 to the veteran. It's 100% funded. One of the things I thought was just incredible, and you know this, you're partnered with a pup yourself.
Love it.
These animals, they finish this rigorous 9 to 13, 14 month training regimen, actually come out, and I'm going to say the term medical device. That's certainly not correct, but I know they actually get status in the VA. They get these things. And so all these things started lining up. I go, veterans suffering with PTSD can get assistance. We can rescue animals. We can put them all together. You know, all these things. There's not a negative thing that you can point at. And oh yeah, by the way, I get to maintain, you know, the healthy lifestyle that I like. And if I can bring a little bit of insight and a little bit of focus on this problem, epidemic, I dare say, of PTSD in our veteran corps right now, then let's get after it. I mean, the numbers, you and I talked about this on an email thread a couple of weeks ago, Mike, that I think the numbers still statistically are about 22 veterans a day.
Yeah, we're taking ourselves out at a pretty high rate.
And I'm not saying that, you know, Mike Ergo and Ed Kenney can change the world on that respect. But man, if we can partner up, you know, and save, I don't know, 1, 2, 10, 12, 100, whatever the number is, that's a job well done. And it's certainly worth my effort to try and do it.
I agree with you. And you're right. It's something that it's a change that we can make. We don't have to have any illusions of changing the entire world, but it's a very doable and very powerful change. And anyone who's listened to my episode previously on Transitions for More with Matt Decker and Pause for Purple Hearts knows a little more about the science of partnering dogs with humans and why that works so well. So it's what's cool about this is, you know, you're not raising money for people to get more pills. You're not raising money for things that are, I mean, controversial in how well they work, but it's a proven method. It's something, you know, that we've lived around dogs for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's something that works, and it's something that you can do.
Yeah. I remember talking to Chad about how many counselors he went through when he was working with the VA and our system. You know, he was certainly appreciative of all the effort of the VA Corps counseling teams. And, but there was inconsistency. You know, you'll work with somebody for a few months and then there's somebody new and you're kind of restarting.
Oh yeah. Establishing that trust is so hard. And especially when it's like, well, now you're going to work with this person. Wait, so I have to tell all the things I told the last person
and that were hard to talk about? Everything all over again. And all that progress you thought you were making is now being, you know, kind of diluted a little bit. Being partnered with an animal provides more consistency. You know, that dog wakes up and looks at you and you, that I keep saying the word partner because I don't look at it as a pet, and I don't think you do either. I mean, right. You and I talked on a video chat a few weeks ago, and you saw the pup sitting next to you, and I don't think your arm left that pup, and I don't think, and you weren't there petting it like, you know, my son pets the family dog. And maybe I'm off here, Mike, and I apologize if I am, but that it seemed like that gave a bit of an extension and a comfort that allowed your day to, you know, to kind of keep going.
Yeah, no, you're right on with that. You're right on with that. And it's the nice thing about it, it's not very convoluted. It's pretty simple. So you pair a person with a dog, especially a dog that knows how to help a person more than the average one. It's a winning formula. It's just a winning formula. Yep. So on this journey, you're starting January 1st.
Yeah.
I can imagine that the people who are just going to be waking up out of the gutters are going to look at you and be like, what a fucking asshole. Who's this guy in spandex, like running and swimming? Like, they're trying to wipe away the cobwebs and the hangover.
Yeah, you're right. I think but you know, they're going to always be out there.
Of course.
You know, those are the people that honk their horns at us when we're riding our bike. Those are the people that, you know, do all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. I mean, that's their call. I'll tell you what, I've already got about 3 friends that have already said they're in on January 1 to do the whole thing with me that day.
Hey, so
Local triathletes.
You're going to do it local. This is going to be,
Yeah.
I don't know very many calendar races that are on January 1st.
No, there are none. So so this was another lesson learned from the Iron Cowboys journey in that movie. And that lesson is he caught quite a bit of scrutiny. You know, the triathlon community is, I think, 95% exceptionally supportive. You know, a brotherhood or a sisterhood or a fraternity type of feeling when you meet most of them. But there's a 5% of real douchebags out there.
Oh yeah, we call them the pathetic triathletes group on Facebook. Yeah, there are some haters, man.
They really are, and you know, I really don't want to focus on that, but I want to be very clear that my challenge is for the distance of 70.3, and they are not all going to be sanctioned. They are not USAT. I will be wearing earbuds. I will, I will be doing quite a few of the swims. I live in North Carolina, and you know, it may not be Fargo, North Dakota, but it's certainly not warm enough to be out in the lake every other Saturday.
Yep.
So January 1, my intent is to hop in the pool here in Cary, North Carolina, do the distance. If the weather's nice enough, I'd certainly love to ride outside, you know, but if not, then I'll have my Wahoo kicker, which I'm excited because, you know, through Zwift and technology, you know, I can have an interactive part of my calendar on the website that people can actually join. I'll set up the event, and people from all over the world can join in the ride that day.
See, that is fun. That is exciting to know that if we know ahead of time, like we can join you on one of these rides.
Yeah, my intent is to have the calendar on that website, you know, updated about every other week so I can give a good idea, and you know, and try and get people to do it. And I think people would donate, you know, $5-10 to the cause to be able to hop onto the Zwift ride. And then if I need to do my run on a treadmill or hit the tobacco trail, which is right here in my backyard here in North Carolina, and do the distance.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And we learned from the Iron Cowboy that no matter what you do, certain people are going to talk shit. And that's just the reality of anything.
Fucking racing a hurricane, and somebody on Slow Twitch tried to call him out because he went onto a treadmill or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you could raise a lot of money and fly and land on the fucking moon, and there'd still be someone online talking shit. So it's just
those folks are just not gonna rain on my parade and my challenge here, you know. But so that's the intent. You know, the distance will be 70.3. Period. That's
what are some of the races that you're doing that are sanctioned races that maybe we could join you or follow you?
Yeah. So right now we've got living here in North Carolina. There's a great local race event group called FS Series, and the one that I'm signed up for right now is in May. It's down in Beaufort, North Carolina, not to be confused with Beaufort, South Carolina, which is close to Parris Island.
Right.
Beaufort, North Carolina. Yeah, no, I don't want you to get any. I don't want any flashbacks from you, so I'll keep you in North Carolina. But this one is a very, very nice. It's only the second year running. Last year's inaugural was a very successful race, and I love the idea of supporting a local race group. So that's going to be the first one. The second one that I'm signed up for right now is Ironman Lake Placid, as I mentioned. That is going to be that's going to count as 2 of the 26. I'm working with my coach, Audra Adair, out of Race Relentless, is my coach, and she's bringing an interesting perspective of this, because it's not about going out and beating a PR every other week. It's about, you know, maintaining, you know, my health, my ability, not necessarily going out and being the fastest thing, you know, weekend after, you know, every other weekend. So we're putting together the rest of the race calendar. I would like to, go and do some of these on some of the military installations, just because there is that connection. Living here, I've got Bragg and Lejeune pretty much in my backyard.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'll tell you, I work with, and I've been a member of the Waddy Inc. Hit Squad. So Heather Jackson and Sean Watkins. Heather Jackson is certainly my triathlon crush. I just love being a part of her organization. She's just badass, gritty. And then you hear her talk and you're like, she's just the sweetest thing ever. It doesn't hurt the fact that she is a freaking legit badass, placing 5th in Kona this year. And knock on wood, hopefully going out to repeat in Arizona here in a couple of weeks. But
I hope so.
But they're located right out of San Diego, and would love to come down there and either do a self-directed or even a race down in the San Diego area, partner up with the Naval Station. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking at. Santa Rosa, which I know is in your backyard, Mike, the scheduling is off. I did look at that one. And then I did look at St. George, just because James Lawrence is located out of Utah.
Yeah, it's this area.
But that's a full, and that's the North American Championship this year. So I was going to ask him to pace me, but I don't. I'm not doing another freaking full out there, so I don't have to wait.
That's a smart plan, man. And then you bring up a good point. There's so many races that, like, it's where do you start? Where I always have to look at all the different races and decide, okay, which ones can I pick? Because a lot of them I want to do all of them. And that's usually how it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the idea of I'm not made of money, travel and everything. I'm $0, and I'm very clear about this. $0 from any of this cause will be going to me to support this challenge. 100% will be going directly to Canines for Veterans.
So people can donate on your website. Through the website. So 26, the number 26, the word in, and the number 52.com is the website. 26and52.com. And everyone check the show notes, or the link is in there.
Yeah, the website is getting a polish by a professional. I did take on the task. I'm a banker by trade, and I took on the task of web designer. So it's okay. It'll certainly give you some solid information. It's being adjusted and kind of getting some added efficiency to it by a pro. But the website is up and running. The donate now tabs are active and go directly to Canines for Veterans. So yeah, it's up and running. But we'll be seeing that evolve.
When do you want to have your money raised by? Is there like a drop dead date? I'm
sorry, say that one more time.
When do you want to have all your money raised by? Is there a cutoff date?
Not necessarily. And I find that when you say something out loud, it becomes reality. We haven't talked about what my goal is yet. So the goal is physical goal and challenge is 26, 70.3 in 52 weeks. Going back to doing that research on the veterans and the dog training, I learned this is not inexpensive. The average cost from the day they pick the dog up from the kennel to the day it's placed with its partner is $32,000 per dog. And the organization I'm working with, they said they average between 10 and 12 placements a year, which I know they're looking to expand, and God help with some exposure. Perhaps we can help them get there. But I'd like to try and fund them for a year. So my number, as lofty as it may be, is to try and raise $320,000 over the course of the year.
I love it.
Like anything, it's a reality once you say it out loud. It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. I like it, though. That you got to have those big, audacious goals.
Yeah. Well, and I certainly am not throwing it out there with the idea of backing, pulling the reins back. The fact is this: if I raise $3,200, if I raise $32,000, it's more than what's in their operating account, right? It's an addition to what's in their operating account right now.
Exactly.
I'm actually setting myself up to in an absolute situation where I cannot fail.
How else can our listeners help you? So there's monetary donations on your site, which we've linked to in our show notes. What else?
The monetary donations are certainly it. Are the main. I think there's also a bigger thing here, and go back to my initial comments on how I got into this. I was a fat ass at 43 years old, not doing anything. Get up, get outside, participate, find a local chapter, foster a dog, do any of these things and talk about the issue of veterans and PTSD in open forums, because it's not quite as known as people think, or it's not quite as they're just not getting the exposure they could. So I would ask to get active, get healthy, both physically and mentally, participate locally. Certainly from a financial standpoint, if you wanted to organize a local 5K in the neighborhood with the idea of 26 and 52 being the flagship purpose, then bring it on. I'm working on getting some swag. I've already got a few little things here and there, but if you plan on doing something like that and would like to take on a number and maybe in a neighborhood 5K, say, would like to raise $500 or $1,000 or whatever, contact me and let's organize, because motion creates emotion. So the idea of talking about it and doing stuff will have this idea snowball. So, and then also, kind of from a logistics standpoint, with the interactive calendar, being able to participate in any part of it, whether that is you just sharing, hey, Ed, I went out and swam with you this morning at the Y, from Phoenix. Awesome.
Do you have a hashtag for this yet that everyone can key in on?
26 and 52 is certainly a hashtag. That's, as you would imagine, from a hashtag perspective, it does bring a couple other things up there. I do have the Instagram set up at 26 and 52. I'm getting ready to, quite honestly, Mike, this type of exposure, working and talking with you, is kind of some of the launching point, besides some soft beta testing I've done locally. This is kind of the launch.
I love it. So yeah. For our listeners out here, I'm putting this out there, that whoever out of our listeners has the biggest donation to Eddie's ventures here, 26 and 52, I'm going to personally send you a 32-ounce Zealios sunscreen pump action tube or bottle, and maybe some other cool stuff here. So everyone who's from our listenership, show us that you've left us a review and that you've donated that little receipt. Email that shit to me at agegroupies@gmail.com. And I'm going to send you something pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I was talking with some friends a week or two ago, and we were talking about that dollar amount. We were talking about $320,000, and it is huge. I mean, but I look at some of the follower numbers on some of these folks that are involved with, organizations like Wear Blue and RWB, these organizations that are military affiliated and also have the endurance side. And, $1, $2, $5, it will be less than a Starbucks cup of coffee. But when we add them up and we throw it out across the country and we do it over the course of 52 weeks, I think we can hit the goal. I love the idea of personal challenges. I love the idea of people saying, hey, listen, I'll give you $5 for every one of the 26 you do, and hold me accountable. I mean, that's what I think would be, it would certainly be motivating. And I will tell you this, my personality is not one to give up very easily. I'm a little bit stubborn. I will get them done. As my body can move forward, I will absolutely get them done. The cause is big enough, and I believe in it enough.
That's awesome, man. This is inspiring. And I know what it's like to be be in a place where you're on the outside looking in, and then take that leap, that scary leap into something you don't think you can do. and then just start crushing it. And that it's so fun. That's why it's so exciting to see what you're doing. And especially to set this big ass goal up, doing 26 half Ironman distance races in a year and raising money. It's a win-win-win. I love it, man.
I'd ask if again, going back to that accountability thing, and not to take up your airspace with regards to your podcast and stuff, but would certainly love to come back and, on a quarterly basis or so, just give a 10-minute or 15-minute kind of update on where we stand, how things are going.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Keep the wave growing.
We're going to be checking in on you very frequently on this show and making sure that we're keeping current on everything to see how many people we can get involved with you.
Yeah. 26and52.com, 26and52@gmail.com. My phone number is on the website because I'm not worried about not being communicated. I want to talk to anybody that wants to get involved at any level. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come out here and tell my story. I hope it motivates even just a few people to get up and work inside the veteran community, work inside the dog community, work with yourself to get healthy, because I think we owe it to each other to stay, to keep each other motivated and on track.
Awesome. Eddie, been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty. That concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies Podcast with me, Lindsay Hiken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.